One of the simplest things we do, and one of the most astonishing things we do, is we are able to trigger an emotional and physical response like that. And they're called triggers or anchors, and it's based on a principle of human behavior, which is there's actually, inside your mind, there's no lag time in changing emotional states. In other words, you can go from happy to sad just like that. You can go from sad to happy. You can go from one emotional state to another in a heartbeat, because that's how you're wired and that's how your mind actually works. We usually drag it out, not only because I've mentioned in other arenas about how people confuse the physiological response to emotion with the emotion itself. And if, for example, you're very, very angry, well, then you're pumping a lot of stimulants into your system. And even though you make the mental shift of like, oh, wait a minute, I misunderstood, you still have those biochemicals surging through your system. It takes a little while to filter them out and for you to like physically calm down. The physiological responses that you get from suggestion are absolutely real, and they can be triggered instantly by anything. You can tell them, I wouldn't do this, do not do this. But as an example, say every time you see the color red, you'll have a full body orgasm. Now, if you give this to the suggestion or command to someone who is in trance and trusts you and has a track record of success with you, that it will become literally true. And anytime they see red, they'll have an orgasm. This is the kind of anchor that's going to diminish relatively quickly, because it's obviously not going to work well in real life. I mean, you can do this in private, put on your red shirt, have a wonderful time. And then they walk out, they see stop signs, they see red cars, they see other red shirts, they see flashing red lights. And so the mind will step in and go, wait a minute, this is overkill, this is not useful, and the effectiveness of the anchor will diminish. If you had set the anchors like every time you see red when you're alone with me, then that would work. I mean, a well-set trigger lasts for a lifetime. I like to anchor people to aspects of myself. So, for example, I like to suggest to people that when they're around me, they can sense my presence. They can just relax or feel open because they're about to have a good time. And that will always work. Or I'll tell them to look into my blue eyes and go into trance. And how often will somebody look into my eyes in conversation? Pretty near constantly. So it takes them into trance. They're very open and malleable, and I can teach them how to feel a whole lot of pleasure and feel fantastic. I might trigger a touch. I mean, I've talked about how in casual social settings I would like to trigger the left side of a woman's left leg with little pleasure access points. Why? Because if after a social interaction we find ourselves in my car driving over to my house, what can I actually reach? I can reach her left side. Okay, we're here in America, so I'm driving, I can reach her left side. And I can continue to fire off these pleasure responses while we're in the car heading over to my place. It's kind of like we're going to sample the poo-poo platter on the way towards the entree over at my house. Okay? But anything can be used as a trigger, anything at all. Find yourself in a situation will trigger this. Color, sound, touch, my voice, my presence, thinking about me. Right? I very commonly send subjects home with the assignment to, over the space of a few seconds, go completely through the session we just experienced, have all these responses again, and make it become even more natural. Okay, so they can go home and practice deepening the effectiveness of my suggestions or commands just by thinking about them. So yes, you can trigger or anchor orgasm through touch, through voice, eyes, whatever, but that's only because in trance you can anchor anything to anything, which is what we teach in the classes.